Hello, children. Today we are going to see your subject biology. In that, we are going to start the unit 4 Animal Kingdom. So, in unit 3, we saw about plant kingdom, about all the characteristics of plants, and the different divisions of plants were seen in the last lesson. In this lesson, you will be detailedly seeing about the animals, what are type of organisms are included under animals, and what are their characteristics, and the divisions of the animal kingdom will be discussed in this lesson. So first we are going to see about the basis of classification. So why we are classifying all the organisms and on what basis, what is the criteria for classifying the organisms will be seen in the coming slides. In the earth, if you see, means there are many different types of animals. So there are domestic animals, wild animals, many birds are there. So from very small animals to huge animals can be seen, and they are living in the planet earth. So these organisms has to be taken and they have to be classified. So this is the main purpose of classification. So why we are classifying? Since many organisms are present, there is a need to group all the organisms in order to study about them. So for that purpose only we are mainly undergoing classification. In spite of all these different types of animals, some structures of and form of the plants are same. So some features of the animals, even though externally they may look different, there are some criteria that may be common. So criteria like symmetry, body symmetry, the nature of the coelom and patterns of the digestive system, the circulatory system, or the reproductive system. So all these things it may be common in some of the animals. So based on these features only the classification has been made. So these are the basis of classification. So in the coming slides I will be discussing about each of the characteristic in detail. The first criteria is levels of organization. So as you can see in this slide, these are the various levels of an organism. So in the below you can see the first level is protoplasmic level. So these protoplasms are present inside the cell. So comparing them based on the protoplasm level will be put under the protoplasmic level. Then cellular level and tissue level and organ level, and finally organ system level. So every organism has been placed according to these the organization only. These are the examples of each cellular organization: sponges, coelentrates, and platyhelminthes. So these organisms will be an example for each of these organization. Even though all the members of animalia, that is the organisms that are present in the animal kingdom, they are multicellular. So like plant kingdom, this animal kingdom also, it is multicellular, but all of them do not exhibit the same pattern of organization of cells. That is, the composition of cells in each organism will differ from one animal to another. So for example, we can take sponges. So in sponges, the organization of cell is very loose. It is being arranged in a very loose manner. So they exhibit cellular level of organization, and some of the group cells may exhibit some activities, some metabolic activities. Whereas if you see coelentrates, so these arrangement of cell will be very complex when compared to the sponges. So what happens? The cells of the coelentrates are very complex, and they form groups and they perform functions in the body. And these cells together they form tissues. So hence they are called as tissue level organization. So organisms like coelentrates are placed under tissue level organization, and a little bit higher level of organization, that is the organ level. So this characteristic is exhibited by the platyhelminthes, and there are other phylums also which are higher. They exhibit organ level organization. So here in platyhelminthes, what these tissues will happen, they will group together to form organs, and those organs they perform a specialized functions. So all these organs they are assigned to perform a particular function. So they all the organisms together form a specific physiological function. So you would have already studied about these organizations, that is from the cells to the organ system. So how it has been arranged. So the same concept only, but here we are applying with examples of animal kingdom. So there is no difference. So organ system means you have to remember, you can take the human being itself. So in digestive system, that is one organ system. So in that, if you see, means we have a stomach, we have liver. So multiple organs have been included in one organ system, and all those organ system together form organism. So the same concept only is applied here. The next criteria is symmetry. So there are three types of symmetry, that is asymmetrical, radial symmetrical, and bilateral symmetrical. So asymmetrical means when they are divided into two or four halves, they cannot be divided equally. So symmetry is nothing but dividing the body of an organism and seeing whether they are equally divided. So in asymmetry, it is not possible. So in whatever way we cut the organism, it does not show a similar divisions. So the next is radial symmetry. So in radial symmetry, in whatever direction we divide the body, it will divide into equal halves. So that is called as radial symmetry. And finally, bilateral symmetry. So bilateral symmetry, it has to be divided into two equal halves. So if it is divided into two equal halves, it is coming under bilateral symmetry. So with the pictures, the symmetries has been depicted. So animals are categorized on the basis of symmetry. Sponges, they are mostly asymmetrical. That is, in whatever any plane that passes through the center does not divide into equal halves. When any plane passing through the central axis of the body divides the organism into two identical halves, it is called as radial symmetry. So they have just given the definitions, and I have already explained you about the different divisions. So in sponges, in whatever way in the central axis, if you cut, it is not divided into equal halves. Whereas if you see in radial symmetry, the body, when it is cut in the central axis or whatever division, it is cut into equal halves. It is called as radial symmetry. So in coelentratas, netophores, echinoderms, so these are all different phylums of animal kingdom. So that about the each phylum of the animal kingdom we'll be seeing later on. So just remember, these are the examples of the radial symmetry, that is coelentrates, netophores and echinoderms. So these organisms have this kind of body plan. And animals like annelids, arthropods, etc., so they have, when they are divided into two halves, they have an identical left and identical right halves in one plane. It is called as bilateral symmetry. Next is diploblastic or triploblastic organization. So in some animals, there are two embryonic layers. That is, they have two layers around them. On the cells, they have two layers. So an external ectoderm and internal endoderm is present. It is called as diploblastic. So two layers are present. So it is called as diploblastic. So example, sealant traits. And sometimes what happens, an undifferentiated layer may form, mesoglia. It may be present in between endoderm and ectoderm. So in some cases these mesoglia are present. So animals which exhibit while developing in the embryo level itself, when they have three germinal layers, mesoderm. So it may be called as mesoglia or mesoderm. That is, when they are present in between the ectoderm and endoderm, it is called as triploblastic. So three layers, triploblastic. So examples for triploblastic is platyhelminthes and chordates. Here is a diagram representing the two types of organization of cells. So first is, you can see on the left side, diploblastic organization. So there endoderm, ectoderm and and sometimes mesoglia is present in between. In triploblastic you can find ectoderm and mesoderm and finally endoderm. So three layers are present. The next criteria is coelom. So they have given the three types of coelom as you can see in the image. So first is acoelomate. Example, flatworms. So here you have an cavity, an empty digestive cavity, and endoderm, mesoderm and ectoderm is present. So next is eucoelomate. Example, annelids, molluscs, arthropods, echinoderms and chordates. So these are the examples of eucoelomates, and in the center the digestive cavity is present, and after that a coelom is present, and mesoderm, ectoderm is present, and finally the pseudocoelomata. Example, roundworms. So the digestive cavity is present, and around that a false coelom is present, and uh, endoderm, mesoderm and ectoderm. So those three layers are present. So you can find the difference of the presence of coelom and the absence of coelom and false coelom. So just for the name's sake, it is being there. So these are based on these presence of coeloms, it has been divided into three types. So the presence or absence of a cavity, that is, cavity is a, if it is an empty space. So presence or absence of cavity between the body wall and the gut wall, it is very important in the classification. So the body cavity which is lined by the mesoderm is called coelom. So animal possessing coelom are called coelomates. When true coelom is present, it is called as coelomates. So coeloms are nothing but it is just a cavity. It is a space between the body wall and the gut wall. So example, annelids, molluscs, arthropods, echinoderms, hemichordates and chordates. In all these animals, these coeloms are present. In some animals, the body cavity, it is not lined with mesoderm. So instead of mesoderm, there is a scattered pouches in the ectoderm and endoderm. So those just, it is, coelom is not present. So instead of that, some layer is present. So that is called as pseudocoelom, and the animals possessing the pseudocoeloms are called as pseudocoelomates. Example, as helminthes. So the animals in which the body cavity is not at all present, it is called as acoelomates. Example, platyhelminthes. So the concept is very simple. These coelom, it is all related to the digestive system only. So when a space is present between the layer of the skin, the body wall, and the gut wall is related to the intestine part, the large intestine, all the small intestine, that part. So when a space is present between the body wall and the gastrointestinal, that is the gut wall, when a space is present, they are called as coelomates. When in that space, when some layers are present, instead of coelom, when some layers are present, it is called as pseudocoelomates. And finally, when no space is there, it is called as acoelomates. So the next characteristic is segmentation. In some animals, there are segmentations present. That is, they are divided into equal parts, compartments. So that segmentation may be externally or internally also. So they will be divided into each segments. So that segment will continue. So, the same size of segmentations will continue. So it's in some organs also, such type of segmentations may be seen. So for example, you can take the earthworm. So they will have segmentations in the body itself. So that segmentation is called as metameric segmentation. And the phenomenon, the concept of having metameric segmentation is called as metamerism. I have shown you the image of the earthworm. So you can see small lines over the body of the earthworm. That is nothing but segmentation. That is metameric segmentation, also called as metamerism. The last criteria of the classification of animal kingdom is notochord. So notochord is nothing but the backbone. So notochord means mesodermally derived, a rod-like structure formed on the dorsal side during the embryonic development in some plants. So when a rod-like structure, when it is formed on the dorsal side of the animal on its embryonic stage itself, when it is present, it is called as notochord. So animals with notochords are called as chordates, and those animals which do not have chordates are called as non-chordates. Example, Porifera to echinoderms. So all these phylums do not have the chordates, that is, they do not have backbone, and other phylums have backbones. So phylums are nothing but the divisions of the animals. So in there we studied about bryophyta, thallophyta, all those divisions. So similarly, in animal kingdom we have different phylums. So that the names has been coming from the starting itself. So those are the divisions of animals. So without the backbone, the porifera, from porifera to echinoderms, all the phylums are there, and the other phylums have backbone. So they are called as chordates. So here you can see the image of a fish, and the body structure has been given. So in the middle you can see an yellowish line, notochord. So it has a rod-like structure over its dorsal side. So that is nothing but the backbone to give a definite shape. So it is a chordate. So we have seen all the different criterias for the classification of animals. Here is a chart to depict all the criterias for a classification. So under kingdom, it is animalia, and the levels of organization, cellular level, and after that tissue, organ, and organ system level. So under symmetry, radial symmetry and bilateral symmetry are there. They will be coming under tissue, organ system organization. And the cellular level means the phylum Porifera is included, and cavity, if you see, means without body cavity, with false coelom, and with true coelom. So example for without body cavity, it is acoelomates. false coelomenes, pseudo coelomates, and true coelomenes, coelomates. So the example for organisms with no coeloms are called, the example is platyhelminthes, and false coelom is aschelminthes, and animals with true coelom are Annelida, Arthropoda, Mollusca, Echinodermata, Hemichordata, and Chordata. So these are all the phylums and the divisions. Each criteria for the classification is given. So from the starting of the lesson class, I have been teaching these concepts only. So if you see this chart, you will get an idea about what I have been teaching from the first. So I hope you would have understood all the different criterias for a classification in animal kingdom. So in the coming classes, we will be discussing about the different phylums. So this is just the characteristic of it. So all the terms are very new to you. So go through the videos again and again, and PDF will be given as usual in the WhatsApp group. So copy all the questions without any spelling mistake. Thank you, children.